two, one, and we're live. Hi, Zoe or Zoella. You are a tattoo designer in America, I believe.
Yes, I'm located in Florida.
Nice. Is there a good scene for tattoos in Florida?
There actually is, especially in Miami, it's really big. I'm in Tampa, so it's pretty big here too. Any big city pretty much has a really good scene for it.
Nice. Have you noticed if the designs change from city to city or area of America to area of America?
Yeah, they definitely change. There's so many styles in tattooing. So, like out in the Midwest, there's a ton of traditional artists, which is like more bold lines, and they pretty much pick like three or five colors and stick to that. Out here in Florida, there's a lot of traditional stuff too, but I kind of specialize in fine lines, so I do a lot of like dainty work.
Right, like very intricate thin lines and mandalas.
Right. It's like a girly design, but a lot of people like it, and there's some guys that are into that too.
Yeah, I like them too. They look cool. Although
Thank you.
when I got a henna tattoo last, I actually got quite a thick, bold looking skull. Is that the type that you mean when you mean bold lines? It's like thick, filled in.
Yeah, pretty much.
Right.
Just it's more like a simplified design, and it's just bold lines.
Yeah, like someone's cut out a potato and a shape on a potato and stuck it
Right.
into.
It's kind of like a sticker just on there.
Right. Whereas your designs, it's more, it's definitely not something you could create on a potato. You really spend time to focus on the intricate lines, the geometry, I suppose.
Oh, definitely.
Do you personally look into the mathematical side of the tattooing to see the symmetry and such?
Yeah, I do. I use a lot of like symmetry in my designs. I find it really fits the body really well. So I use a ton of geometry in it too. And I'll like a lot of times when I do my sketches, I start with just basic shapes and I kind of go from there and then build in the more design work and the intricates and the details of it.
Right. I see. So do you have an algorithm for that, or is it more what you see as you're painting it? The
Most of the time, I kind of have a vision in my head and I'll try to work off of that. I mean, it's hard as an artist to get like what's in your head onto paper. So a lot of times I'll have three or four different versions of the same thing. Uh, so I don't necessarily have an algorithm. It just kind of flows with my head and I paint as I go or I draw as what I go and I fit things in where it needs to be.
Right. So it's very instinctual. It's in the moment, and you don't really plan ahead with it all.
Oh, definitely. And like music will influence me a lot. Like if I'm listening to rap, like I'll notice my designs will get a little bit busier. If I play like classical music, it'll be more of like a elegant design.
Wow, that's fascinating. So yeah, depending on the genre of music, you change your style. Do you ever
Yeah.
intentionally choose a song to?
I actually do. I do it a lot. If I know, because I do my personal designs and people kind of pick those for my Instagram. And then I also have people reach out to me to do like commission type work. Um, so sometimes I'll even ask like a client, like, hey, what's your favorite song or what do you listen to? And I'll kind of play that because I feel like it gives me an insight to them and I feel like I can design better for them.
Right, and it works out.
Oh, definitely. It helps a lot because I feel like music tells a lot about a person.
Of course, yeah, definitely. That's when I meet someone new, it's one of my the first things I love to learn about the person, what the type of music they listen to, and
Right.
for sure. Um, yeah, I try to use music in my own work as well, as a filmmaker, and I find that if I listen to a certain rap song and it, yeah, like you said, it makes the work busier, it makes it more frantic. It's like there's so much more going on. It sparks a different type of creativity.
Right. It's like a certain energy it gives.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. When you're working with these clients, do you design? Do they give you like a stimulus based on a word or an image, and then do you do the rest, or how does that work?
Um, it depends on the client. Sometimes it'll just straight up be like someone will say, "Oh, I want this with this." They know exactly what they want. They just can't do the artist side of it. Um, Sometimes it's like a reference picture, and they'll say like, "I like this. Could you do something similar?" And then sometimes I have people that just like my style, so they'll come to me specifically for my style and just say, like, they'll give me my own work and say, "I like this piece. Could you do something like that?"
Oh wow, that's incredible. So you're able to influence
Yeah,
people from that distance. From
yeah, it's amazing.
that really is amazing. Where do people usually find you? Is it on Instagram?
Yeah, Instagram's my main source of traffic. I'm on TikTok a little bit. And then, of course, I have like business cards that I pass out, but Instagram's really where most of my people come from.
That's interesting. That's where I find my guest. That's where I found you as well. It's
Yeah,
it's an excellent place to discover new people and people that have similar interests to you, and to discover new art as well. Um,
yeah, that platform's amazing.
for sure, it is. Um, so you said that you studied before we went live. You mentioned that you studied art.
Yeah, so I actually went to college for digital arts and design. I originally I wanted to do like logo designs and branding, more of the digital and marketing side of art. Because I didn't, I never realized that you could follow your passion and kind of make money off of it in the art world. That's hard to come by. So I went to college to try to go into the marketing side. And then now that I'm out, I found my passion again and realized that I can do it on my own personal art and people will love my art and appreciate it for what it is.
Right, of course. And this way of using the logos, well, when you first started working with art, you were going into graphics work, and I feel like tattoos and logos and graphic work are sort of similar in the sense because they're like straight cut lines. They're not like, if you're doing a painting, there might be some
Right.
messiness to it.
Yeah, it's definitely, they go hand in hand. And I use a lot of my degree for, my tattooing. And you don't have to go to school for tattooing, obviously, but I feel like it definitely gives me an advantage in just knowing the background of, yeah, like designing and basics and kind of like how things flow. So it definitely has helped me out a lot.
Yeah, I can imagine. Do you work with people that didn't have training or maybe started with tattooing as an introduction to art?
Yeah, so my boss actually, my mentor, the one that's leading me for my apprenticeship, he's he started tattooing like in high school. So he literally his senior year of high school, he started his apprenticeship, um, and just went straight into tattooing. So he's just yeah, he went balls to the wall basically.
That's incredible. Wow. He must have been around 18 at high school.
Oh yeah, he's younger than me actually. He just turned 21.
Wow. Wow. To really follow his passion and throw everything at it at a young age,
Yeah.
that's brave.
He's a huge inspiration for me. And he's kind of the one, he was my tattoo artist before I did my apprenticeship. So he's the one that did all of my tattoos. And I would kind of, like he would mention like, oh, you should do tattooing because I do all my own designs and he would do the actual tattoo for me. So I drew all mine. He would just do them. So he kind of like recruited me and it definitely inspired me to kind of try to steer away from that day job and kind of go for my passion.
Right. So it was totally accidental, the fact that you're now a tattoo artist.
Oh yeah, definitely. I was literally getting a tattoo and he was like, hey, you should do this. And then my friend was there with me. Um, I practiced like drawing on my friend and he was like, yeah, you're going to tattoo now. So that same weekend I went and did all the like the blood pathogen. There's a bunch of like tests and stuff you have to do. So I went and did all those and texted him and was like, "Hey, can I start this weekend?" And here I am.
Oh, brilliant. Wow. What a quick start to the industry. So you were from the time that he told you to start becoming a tattoo designer to becoming a tattoo designer was 1 week. Is that right?
Pretty much, yeah.
That's incredible. Wow. And
And then,
oh, sorry,
sorry,
carry
go ahead.
on. That's the pain with these online Zoom calls. We can't see each other's reactions to know when who's going to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Please do carry on.
What was I gonna say?
Okay.
Oh, and the actual apprenticeship. I'm like I said, I'm about 6 months in. And hopefully by summertime, I'll be able to be tattooing full time, and that will be I'll be done with my apprenticeship, and I'll still learn every day, but I'll be kind of on my own at that point.
Right, because you've got enough skills to carry it on independently.
Right.
Did you mention earlier that there was a blood test of some sort to do with
Oh,
tattooing?
yeah. So, I mean, it's different in every state and every area, basically. But to be a tattoo artist, you have to take a blood pathogen test. So you learn about all the cleanup and the setup and all of because I mean, you're working with an open wound, basically. So you have to learn all of the kind of the medical aspect of it and take a test on it. Um, and then after that, you can get your license after your apprenticeship.
Right. Okay. So you must have some medical insight as well as tattoo designing.
Yeah, because I mean, you have to be safe and clean. The industry's it's very clean. They do inspections. They stay on top of it.
Right, of course. And if anyone comes back with some sort of infection, the fault is on the tattoo artist.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, a client has to take care of their tattoo. And there's ways to get infected. Like if you go out to a club the night you get your tattoo, I mean, you're pretty much going to get an infection. But there's a lot that is on us too.
Right. So what sort of precautions could someone take? Like, let's say I just got on a tattoo. What sort of things should I do, and what sort of things shouldn't I do?
So you, I'll give you the whole aftercare. When you get your tattoo, you pretty much need to clean it 2 to 3 times a day. It's important to use antibacterial soap so that it, stays truly clean. Um, and then you need to moisturize too because it helps the germs not stick. So if you moisturize with an unscented lotion, that definitely helps out. As far as like the night of a tattoo, you just kind of have to not go out and be crazy. Like don't work out if there's going to be a gym where there's dirty equipment, things like that. Um, Keep it covered for like an hour or two, but it's pretty easy to take care of.
Okay. Would it be okay if I were to work out the night of getting the tattoo, but it was in a clean area, like my own home?
Um, I mean, yes, I probably, you don't want clothes rubbing on it. So if it's in like an area like your forearm, I mean, you would be good to go. But you don't want any friction either because it can kind of halt the healing process.
Right. Okay. Of course. Any sort of irritation to the area where it is quite, like you said, an open wound. It's an injury. You got to protect it the
Right,
same way you
right.
would an injury or a graze. And do they scab up? So,
They do actually. So it's actually pretty interesting the way they scab up. It's kind of like the first layer of the skin will scab up because you have different layers to your skin. And that first layer, when the scab comes off, it looks like your tattoo's flaking off because it'll be scabbed like black or whatever color your ink is. So it kind of like the tattoo looks like it's coming off, but it's not. It settles into the second layer of the skin.
oh man. So if you had a green, red, and yellow tattoo, you'd have a green, red, and yellow scab from where the blood and the ink
Yeah,
is mixed.
yeah, it would come off and it comes off kind of in sections. Um, so like if you have like one of my tattoos is a little Russian doll, and the eyeball came off in like one whole section. So I had basically like a little stamp that was the scab.
Do you still have it?
No, I didn't save it.
I was just wondering if I've been thinking like, can you frame one of the scabs? Like, does it come out clear like the image does if it did come out in one chunk?
Yeah, I could if I wanted to.
That's awesome, man. That's so cool. And when you're going into creating these tattoos, and you mentioned earlier that you have this sort of bouncing back and forth between the client, and it can either be because they like your style or because they have an image in mind. What sort of creative way do you get creative? What do you use to spark the creativity when a client comes to you and says, I want a tattoo of an hourglass?
So I am influenced a lot, like I said earlier, with music. I feel like all art forms kind of go hand in hand. So I music is a big one for me. Looking at other artists or other paintings helps, and nature is a huge one for me. Like I can go out and look at a cloud and kind of see something in it, and that'll inspire and like make my brain race.
Wow, that's so cool. Have you ever made a tattoo from a cloud from the inspiration?
Um, I kind of have. I have a tattoo that I designed that looks kind of like a teddy bear. Um, and that was actually from I saw a cloud. I was like out shopping with my mom one day, and I saw a cloud that looked like a teddy bear with a like holding a heart. So it influenced that.
That's so cool. So yeah, you can get these inspirations from anywhere.
Oh yeah.
That's awesome. What's your favorite tattoo that you've designed?
Um, I think my favorite one is one that I actually have in myself. It's a frog, and he's holding a little top hat and a little bouquet of flowers. It's the first one that I designed for myself, and it has meaning behind it. And I don't know, it's kind of the one that set off my career. So it's very sentimental to me.
Wow, that's so cool. That your first ever tattoo is the one that you've held to your heart this whole time.
Yeah, it's very, it's helps me out a lot. I look at it sometimes and I just think of like how far I've come.
Of course. What was your inspiration for the frog holding a bouquet?
Um, so my dad, when I was little, he actually used to sing me a song called Froggy Went a Courtin', and it was about a frog going on a date. Um, so it's a little frog dressing up and going out to get his lady.
That's adorable, man.
Yeah.
And I guess that's it's like some people get like the letters DAD, dad, tattooed on their arm to remember their father. I guess the frog in a way is your symbolic way of remembering your dad.
Oh, definitely. And I actually, my dad's name is Robert, and I named the frog Frogbert.
No, that's so cool. Do you ever like create characters from your designs? And
Um, I do sometimes. Character work is kind of like a whole nother thing. I don't enjoy it as much, but I do sometimes create characters, and a lot of my style. I have a few things that I do consistently throughout. Um, so those kind of create characters on their own.
right, so by creating a design, let's say of a teddy bear or a frog, you've accidentally created a character and a personality.
Right. I do this thing where, like, my eyes that I draw, I do a very specific shape and I black them in. Um, so, like, all of my anything that has an eye, pretty much in my designs, I try to do that same eye shape. So, like, that kind of carries my work through so that you can see my style.
Right. So yeah, it would be a bit rude if you were tattooing something on someone and you left a signature. So your signature is the eye. It's part of the design work.
Right. And I do, like, sometimes I'll put, like, a swirl. Like, if there's a joint on an elbow or something, I'll do, like, a cute little swirl. So there's a few things that or yeah, like you said, they're kind of like my signature without me putting my name on someone.
Yeah, That's very cool. So, when you're working with these design, because you mentioned the swell on the elbow, let's say you're designing the frog or the teddy bear, whilst you're drawing it down on, how do you design it? Do you draw it on paper or computer?
Um, so it depends on the day. Most of the time, I use my iPad because it's quickest for me. Because even if I draw on paper, I'll convert it and end up finishing it off on my iPad. So I use the app called Procreate. So I pretty much do everything on there, but it works just like paper. So I have the Apple Pencil. So like if you turn it, you can shade it like a pencil. You can press harder. It's pressure controlled. So I mostly use my iPad.
Right, that's understandable. It sounds like a far easier way of creating your designs.
Oh, definitely.
And so when you're designing these things on your iPad, are you thinking like you would with any normal drawing that isn't going on someone's body? Are you just looking at it and thinking only of the design, or whilst you're sketching the design onto the iPad, are you thinking of the part of the body that the tattoo is going to be going on and working around that?
Oh, you have to think about the part that it's going on because, I mean, the body has a certain flow to it. That sounds weird, but like you don't want to put a circular tattoo on the wrist. It would look a little strange because that part of your arm is long. So you kind of have to think about where design's going to try to fill this space and make it look like it flows on the body so that it's not just something stuck on there.
Right. So you're really working with the geometry and the angles and the size and the length of different body parts.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think of the body as like planes. So not like an airplane, but like a geometry plane.
Right.
So like the front of the leg, the thigh is one plane, and the side is another plane, and like the thigh itself, that whole the top of your leg is kind of like I don't see it as a cylinder. I kind of see it as a like a rectangle, like a cube, so that I can see the different sides of it to try to make stuff fit and flow like a puzzle.
Right. Wow, that's clever. So you're not thinking of the curves of the body as such. You're just thinking of the length of each section.
Yeah, and then like certain areas, I will think of the curves. So like if somebody's getting a rib tattoo, you kind of want it to flow upwards towards the armpit so that it doesn't just kind of stick out. And for women, it's different than a man's body. It's a certain. It takes practice to figure out like a placement of a tattoo.
Right, I can imagine. Of course, yeah. I'd never thought of that, but I'd never thought of that before because yeah, if you have a tattoo on your pec, if you're a man, and yeah,
Right.
it would just look kind of peculiar because it is going off to the side. So you have to work with the natural shape of the body to keep it fluid.
Right. And everyone's different shapes, sizes. It's so it's easy to do once you get the hang of it, but catching it is kind of a learning curve.
Right, of course. And do you have to work with like, let's say you've designed something on a flat surface, such as your iPad, and then you're putting it onto
Mm.
the body. Do you have to reshape it so that it still looks like the flat image? Because, like, let's say you put that flat image straight on the body, it would, it might stretch in a different way that sort of distorts the image. So do you have to work with that?
Yeah. So when we go to do a tattoo, we do it with a stencil. Um, so you print out a few different sizes. So it'll print it flat, and then you cut the stencil out and kind of size it to where it needs to go on the body. But the important thing for like actually placing the stencil of where the tattoo is going to go, the client, I have to always like tell them like just relax. Like I'll literally make them like shake it out because a lot of times you'll tell someone, okay, stick your arm out, and they want to stick it straight out. So you have to relax the client so that the skin is stretched to where it would naturally be once the tattoo is healed. So you can't really place a tattoo on the thigh with someone sitting down because then when they stand up, it would be stretched and distorted.
Right. Yeah. So you have to really consider that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it ruins the tattoo because of the when do people often when they stick out their arms, do they like tense, or when you ask about their like do they tense the muscle and it ends up causing an issue?
Oh, definitely. And even when you tell people, oh, just relax, like you can't just tell someone to relax. It doesn't work. So I'll literally, like, I'll have to either shake their arm out or just be like, okay, like walk around and then just come back and stand because it's hard to get people to just relax.
Of course, yeah. They must be feeling really tense in that environment as well because it's
All right.
yeah.
And as a tattoo artist, you understand that. So it's not frustrating at all. It's actually kind of like funny.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you must get so used to seeing these people and like relaxing them one after another.
All right.
Nice. Yeah. And do you have sort of systems in place to relax people inside of the tattoo parlor, like scents or
Yeah, we do actually. So our shop is a little bit different than I would say like your average shop. We are very, I don't know how to explain our vibe. We're very like light. So we have a lot of white and like gray colors. And then we have a lot of live plants because I feel like plants help people, just breathe and feel a little bit at ease. And then, like you said, scents, we have plenty of candles. And then we have refreshments. We have snacks and drinks and a little mini fridge and couch for if people will bring their friends and family to just hang out with us.
wow, wonderful. That sounds like a very sort of the way you described it at the start with the whites and the grays and the plants as well, the indoor plants. It reminds me of sort of modern minimalist style.
Right. That's perfect description of it.
Do you when you're so you're going into these designs and you said that you work off of other forms of art such as music or other paintings. And have you found that since working with tattoo designs that you're able to appreciate the art in other things such as architecture?
Oh, I definitely have. Um, it just it helps me see how much work goes into certain things. Um, and it just I appreciate it so much more and different styles too because there's so many different styles of tattooing. Even with regular like traditional artwork, we know that there's different styles, but you don't always necessarily recognize them.
Right. Are there any famous artists in the tattoo world that have such a distinguishable style, kind of like Banksy or Van Gogh?
There are so like I'm sure you've heard of Ed Hardy. Have you heard of him before?
Um, I have not, no.
Oh, maybe it might be an American thing. Um, Ed Hardy is actually he started what is called traditional style pretty much. He's one of the frontiers of that. And he's gone on to clothing brands and kind of like he's got like a motorcyclist type vibe. He's super famous. He's really well known and he's built his whole brand off of his tattoo style.
That's so cool. So his main focus isn't just tattooing, it's fashion and so he isn't
Right.
like an engineer or anything. He doesn't sell motorbikes, but that's just like his image.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's really cool. He sounds kind of like the James Dean of the tattoo world.
Yeah, exactly.
That's cool. That's very cool. Um, and wow, there's it really sounds like there's a sort of community feel because I don't know much about the tattoo world at all. I don't have a tattoo myself, but it sounds like people know each other within the sort of tattoo community, the way that you are able to distinguish between areas of tattoo styles as well as knowing the celebrities.
Oh, definitely. Like I on Instagram, like I obviously follow a ton of tattoo artists and I follow local artists in my area too. And I'll see some of my friends getting tattoos and I'll be like, oh, I can recognize that artist and I'll be able to like know exactly who did it just from seeing their artwork.
Wow, that's cool. That's wow. I had such an ignorant view on tattoos before this conversation. I thought that all tattoos pretty much fit into the same style, and that anyone would be able to do any style as long as it was like relatively simple and not Mona Lisa. But it
Yeah.
isn't that sort of thing. Like someone else may be way better at doing cartoons, whereas you're way better at doing sort of mandala and the thin line sort of effect.
Oh, definitely. And like the technical side of it too, there's certain needles. Um, so there's like tons of different needle sizes and depths, and there's a lot that goes into that aspect of it. So it's needle size too that determines what a style will kind of look like. So certain artists just don't use like a. I use a type 3, which is a really small. It gives me that thin line look that I go for. Some artists don't use those needles, and it's like the technical side will determine the style too, which is cool.
Wow, that is very cool. That they're working off of their tools to create.
Right.
That's incredible. I've seen tattoo guns as well. I don't know if this is just like some sort of scam online or, but it looks like there's almost like six or so needles in like a small bunch, and I think it's used to
Oh,
fill an
yeah.
area.
That's so that's called a. I think what you're describing is called a mag. So yeah, those are used for packing in color. So there's different. I there's basically six kind of categories of the what we call them cartridges. So like when said I use a tight three, that's three needles that are super tight together that kind of make it seem like it's one needle.
Right. Okay. And do you work with these bigger needles like the filler as well at all?
I do sometimes. Um, so I usually stay in the 3 to 5 range. I mean, needles go up to 14. So I've played around with them before, and I've done a few traditional tattoos where I'll have to use a thicker needle. Um, and you can use different needles in different ways too. So like the mag that we use for shading and packing color, you can turn your machine voltage down and it'll make the needles come out slower. So you can do kind of like that stippling effect where it looks kind of like peppered. So it's more of a subtle shading versus a blocked in area of color.
Right, that's so cool. So yeah, depending on the needle, the look can completely change, and you could be
Oh,
shading.
definitely.
Right, that's clever. So like shading, using a what was it called? Sorry, a magger.
A mag, yeah.
A mag. Okay. So using a mag on a high voltage, it would be like obviously at a slower rate because you're moving the needle across the skin slowly, but it would be like using a paintbrush, whereas with the slower rate, it would be like flicking from a distance little dots of paint. Is that
Right,
right?
exactly.
Okay. And do you find that when you're using these different sizes and such, that your style unintentionally changes because of that, the specific piece that you were working on?
Yeah, it changes it pretty much in every aspect. So, like, I can use the different needles for my style, but it's so much easier just to use the smaller needles. And I feel like I can get more of that detail in those fine lines versus trying to use a bigger needle. And even when I'm like designing on my iPad, I'll use my Procreate brush is what I use. I'll put them on like I have them sized out for kind of like my needle sizes and my stippling and the different techniques that I use in the tattoo world. I use that to do my design too.
Right. That's cool. Nice. And do you ever find that when you're working on this iPad, you've got your sort of collection of brushes, you've got everything planned out, ready to go. Do you ever work on paper?
I do work on paper. So ironically enough, I'm actually a middle school teacher. I'm an art teacher sometimes in the weekdays. So
That's awesome.
I I'm forced to work on paper when I'm teaching, obviously, but I also enjoy it because that's kind of what I started. You know, as a kid, I didn't have my iPad. So it brings me back to my roots, and it feels really homely to be able to work on paper still.
Right, of course. So the energy must be totally different when you're working on a piece of paper compared to the computer or the iPad.
Yeah, it feels more rustic and it's more handmade because with the iPad, even though it's the same techniques and it's still me drawing, there's still kind of that disconnect and it's still digital.
Right. And do you find that because of that slight digital disconnect and because of the Celtic sort of feeling of the paper that the designs ever change because of that?
Yeah, it does because like on the iPad too, I can do an easy backspace. Whereas on paper, if I do a little mistake or I make a line too dark, I'm kind of forced to work with that and make it work so it can influence my design into a different shape or a different, different line, a thicker line, a skinnier line, even having to take that line out further and make it longer. I have to work with what I have basically.
Right. So like Bob Ross says, it's like when you make a mistake, it can turn into a really nice, happy little surprise.
Right. Happy little accident.
Happy little accident. Thank you. Um, that's so cool that you're a middle school teacher. Do your students know that you're this cool tattoo artist as well?
They do. They're they obviously think it's the coolest thing in the world. They ask me all the time, "Oh, Miss, can I come get a tattoo?" And I turn them down. But they know, and they think it's cool, and they'll ask me questions like while I'm teaching, like, "Oh, Miss, like, what'd you do in the studio today?" Or they're interested in it, and for me, it's cool because they get to kind of see a career in the art world that's not digital, like logos. It kind of gives them a different path.
Right, yeah, it's so much cooler to not dissing obviously people that create company logos, but it's so much more like there's a sort of badass element to it to be a tattoo artist rather than designing the next Coca-Cola logo.
Right. And living in both realms, it's so much better to be here.
Of course. Oh yeah, of course, because you have that experience from creating logos for companies.
Right.
Wow. And did you ever find that whilst you were working on logos for companies that there was like that signature style that you have with the eyes? Did that ever sort of channel through that you have a sort of style that reflects in the logo?
Um, no. And that's kind of why that world didn't work for me because I'm a very expressive person and I like to be able to express myself through my art. That's why I kind of do it.
Hmm.
So like doing the logos, you have to do what a company wants. They want it exactly this color, this dimension, everything is for them. So that's not the side that I wanted to be on in the art world. I want to be able to express myself and I want people to enjoy my art, not Coca-Cola's logo.
Right, of course, because when these companies are telling you do this, do that, at the end of the day, when the logo is finished, I guess it doesn't really feel like it was your artwork that you were working on.
Right. Right. There's no credibility to it.
Yeah, totally. Because art, I personally feel that art, like you said, is an expression. It's about getting all these ideas, these creative ideas, like when you're, I don't know, eating your cereal in the morning, you're getting these ideas, they're just flowing, they're coming through, and then being able to pick up your iPad or your pen or your tattoo gun and just focus all of this creativity into a specific spot. It's so therapeutic. It's a wonderful feeling.
Exactly. And to have other people appreciate it is so inspiring to me. Like it really drives my passion.
Of course, yeah. And you must get so much admiration whilst working at the tattoo parlor because these are for life.
Yeah, it's so amazing that I feel like I'm at a place in my life where I'm finally happy with what I do.
Wow, that is incredible. That it's so rare to find that nowadays. Or I think, anyways, that people have landed in the spot that they're happy with in life.
Right.
That's awesome. Do you have any of your students that want to now be tattoo artists that are inspired by you?
There are actually a few, and they jokingly say like, "Oh, when I'm out of high school, I'm going to come apprentice under you, and you can teach me how to do it." And I mean, I think that would be cool. I would love to do that. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's opened their eyes a little bit too. Like you said earlier, people don't necessarily know how the tattoo industry works, so it's cool for them too to see the inside of it, and they see kind of the behind the scenes of it too, because I tell them about it.
Right, that's so cool. Whoa, you're so they're getting this two sides. You're able to share your work with them, and they're, I guess, in a way, they're already little apprentices.
Yeah, exactly.
That's cool. That's so cool. Um, do you ever receive any hate from people in against the sort of tattoo industry?
Yeah.
No way.
So the tattoo industry, as amazing as it is, there are a lot of artists that kind of bash on the newer styles. So fine line and dainty stuff and the thin line stuff that I do is kind of newer to the tattoo world. So a lot of the older artists that are true bold lines, three colors, very the sticker style, um, they don't necessarily get the thin style. They don't get that it's still a decorative piece of art. It's just different. So a lot of the older artists will kind of hate on the younger artists. Um, Obviously, it's competitive. Any job is competitive. So there's always going to be people that think you're trash because they're better, or the other way around. But it's still overall a positive environment.
Okay, that's good. As long as it's mainly positive, that's the important thing. As long as it's not like difficult to work because of the hate that you're receiving.
Right. And I surround myself with positive artists. Like if on Instagram, people that I follow, I don't follow the ones that I know are going to be negative. And the people that work in our studio here, they're all so positive, and we talk and collaborate on each other. Like I'll call the other artists, be like, "Hey, come look at this. Like, do you think I should do this? Is the placement good?" We all kind of work together and we encourage each other.
Of course, yeah. It's back to that sort of that sense of community that you all have together.
Right.
That's wonderful. And that when I first asked the question about whether you receive hate, the only type of hate that I expected you to receive was from people that aren't involved in the tattoo industry that believe that, like, for example, how tattooing our bodies can be seen as a sin because it's harming, it's hurting our bodies.
Oh
But for
yeah,
it to actually be within the tattoo industry that there are artists hating on artists, that's shocking to me.
yeah. And I knew that coming into the industry. So to me, it doesn't faze me at all. And since I've been doing art my whole life, I'm kind of at a level where I feel like I'm confident enough in my own artwork to stand by it. Um, so that negativity doesn't faze me. And there are the people that are, "Oh, why'd you do that to your body?" Or, "You're going to have that forever." But to me, I'm like, that's the point. That's why I got tattoos. I want this art on me forever.
Yeah, that's the point of it, and I'm sure you put a lot of thought into it before getting a tattoo. You don't just look up at a cloud, think, um, I don't know, a teddy bear, and you're instantly
Right.
like, oh, I'm gonna do this. You put some time and consideration into it. You think, oh, I really like the idea of a teddy bear with a little love heart. That looks cute, and then it goes from there. And then eventually you're like, yeah, I 100% want this on my body for the rest of my life.
Exactly.
Right. And have you ever had people come outside of the store to sort of protest or like yell obscenities at you?
Um, no, we haven't. We're in a newer location actually, so we just opened the studio little over a month ago. We were at a different location,
Oh, cool.
but we have some people that will just come in and not bash, but you just get some people that are just not encouraging.
That's very interesting. And what is the main reason for it? Do you know? I guess in a way it's a lack of sort of empathy and understanding that you are capable of making these decisions.
Yeah, a lot of it comes from that, and then sometimes it'll be. I mean, it's still a business, so like scheduling issues, things like that, or people don't understand necessarily that tattooing takes a lot of time. So sometimes, we'll be working on a client and it'll take an hour and a half when we only scheduled an hour, but you don't always necessarily know how long it's going to take to create a piece of art. So sometimes scheduling becomes an issue, and we'll have, a lot of people are understanding and very nice about it, but there'll be that one or two that just don't get it.
Of course, yeah. And I guess there are people like that that can be found in every industry in the world with
Right.
wow, you mentioned that tattoos can take some time. Have you ever had a tattoo take like longer than a week or so because of the size of it, the complexity of it?
Yeah. So we do what's called like a session. So if somebody's getting a whole sleeve, so their whole arm completely covered, that's going to take probably a couple months because you can't tattoo over an area until it's completely healed. So like if you do a section, you kind of have to let it heal and then come back to it in a week or two once it's healed. Um, and some people will get one and then fall in love and want to add on within the next week or two. Like once they get a tattoo, it's not an addiction, but they're like ready to go. They want more and more. So there are a lot of times when it takes a long time, more than just one session.
Right, okay. That's cool. That's really cool that once someone has like a little tattoo, they just want to keep going. They find that drive. It's exciting.
Right.
That's very
Because a
cool.
lot of times people, they think it's going to hurt so bad. It's this huge, scary thing. But then they get one and it's realistically, it's not that bad. So then they're like, oh, this is cool. And then they just keep doing it.
That's cool. Yeah, once that initial fear is out of the way, then all doors are open.
Right.
How much I've because I've never had a tattoo. How much does it hurt?
So I compare it, I mean, it's different on which part of the body, things like that. But I compare it to kind of a cat scratch. Um, so kind of that irritated feeling that you get when you have a cat scratch, but depending on the size, it lasts 30 minutes. But it's really not that bad. It's not. I'm not going to say it doesn't hurt, but it's not painful.
Right, okay. Because I've seen in films a few times that there are these huge overreactions where like people are screaming and such, and I guess
Yeah.
that's rare. I've heard that for thinner parts of the body, like I guess like the ribs or the possibly the upper cheek bones, or I don't know.
Um.
Yeah.
So anywhere like that, it's bony. It's gonna hurt a little bit more because it it's not the fat to kind of bounce off the skin as much, so it feels like it hurts more. Um, so like for your first tattoo, a really easy place is like the forearm or somewhere where it's a little bit fatty but not too bony.
Right, so it's sort of padding those vibrations to stop it really irritating the bone and the nerves.
Right.
Okay, that's interesting. Um, and so with tattoos that go on areas that are thin, is there any danger? Is there any well, with tattoos in general, are there dangers that even if all the treatment goes well, etc., that it could cause some damage?
Um, so yeah, if you're not trained well, or you're there's like house artists that just kind of teach themselves to tattoo. That there's a lot of danger that goes into that because you can do like not even just with blood pathogen diseases, so like herpes, HIV, stuff like that. There's also like you can damage your skin because it's an open wound. So if you go over an area too much and you don't necessarily know when to stop, then you can cause scarring, and it can make that area of skin really rough and scarred up, and it can cause damage to the skin.
Right. But for a professional like you know when to really like to just stop on an area of skin and to take the right
Right,
precautions.
exactly.
Right. Okay, that's really important. So there is essentially, if you have a good, well-trained tattoo artist, you take the proper aftercare, there is no risk. There's no danger as long as all of the measures that are put in place are kept there and worked on.
Right. It's really, if everything is in the right placement, the right measures are taken, then it's completely safe.
Right. And so I've heard of tattoo removal. Do you know anything about that?
Um, I have heard about it. There's a shop um, about 2 hours away from where our shop is, and they actually do tattoo removal in their tattoo shop, which I find a little strange. But
Right.
um, I think it's a good thing for people that get a tattoo they regret, or if you get a name of your ex, things like that. But there's also cover up tattoos that are an option where you can just cover up a smaller tattoo with a bigger tattoo, and you design it to where you can't tell there was one ever under it.
Yes, I've seen those. Have you worked on one of those yourself? Have you done any cover-up tattoos?
Yeah, I've designed a few cover up tattoos, and they're really fun to do. Like for me, it's kind of an accomplishment. It's a challenge, and I like to challenge myself. So doing cover up designs is so fun for me because it's kind of like a puzzle piece that you have to figure out.
Right, of course, yeah, because you have to get a specific shape rather than just a blank canvas. You have to fit it around this specific shape.
Right.
And I assume you have to work off of colors as well. Like if the previous tattoo was red, yellow, and green, then you'd have to work off of those to make sure that it properly hides it. Or what's the
Yeah. So, like I said, we're a red, yellow, and green one. You can use like color theory too and figure out what colors would complement. So, like for the red, I could use like a purple to do a shadow in the red and make the red the highlight instead of it being the main color. There's so much that goes into it that it's just fun for me.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Well, that's the main thing of it. As long as it's fun, as long as you're having a good time, that's a really important thing in life because we only have one life.
Right.
Um, and so if I had a piece of paper in front of me right now and I had some crayons and I scribbled with a black crayon and then I tried to scribble over it with a yellow, it obviously wouldn't work because the dark shade would totally blot out the yellow. The yellow is too weak. But for
Right.
tattooing on skin, let's say I had a black tattoo on my arm, would it be possible to tattoo yellow ink over that because it's like on top of the black, if that makes sense?
So you, not really. I mean, you could. It would turn to like a darker green. So it would. It's kind of like it messes the color up. So it goes over the black, but it just darkens the yellow. But there are some artists that do literally black tattoos, and they'll go over it with white ink, and it'll make it like a gray. So there's certain ways to kind of go around it, but it still would show through.
Wow, that's fascinating. So I don't suppose you know how that works. If like the ink stays liquid under the skin so that it can merge, or
So the ink goes into the second layer of the skin, um, and it literally like stains your that layer of your skin. So once it heals, um, it's in there for good. It becomes part of your skin. Basically, it kind of fuses and it just stains your skin, and it's there forever.
right? Right. So it's kind of like if I was to dye a t-shirt, um, I don't know, let's say green, and then I added blue to that. Actually, I don't know what the combination of green and blue would create. I don't suppose you do.
It would be like a tealy color, like blue green, but kind of like a mix between the two.
Okay. So I have this fabric, and I suppose the skin in is similar to the fabric of a t-shirt in that, well, unlike a piece of paper that I've scribbled on and then I put the yellow on top, you most likely wouldn't see the yellow because the colors wouldn't mix. You just see like little dots of yellow. But with the fabric of the t-shirt, the colors would blend. And I guess that's what happens with the skin, because the skin is dyed the same way that the fabric of a t-shirt is. So when you add another
Right.
dye on top of that, it blends and mixes the two.
Exactly. That's a really good like analogy. That's yeah. That's how it works, pretty much.
That's so cool. And my my favorite part of art, I think, is symbolism and metaphors. So just in anything really, in a film scene, like what do the objects or the props in the background represent to do with the character, things like that.
Right.
Do you have do you work off of symbolism and metaphors when you're designing tattoos at all?
Oh, absolutely. So all of my tattoos on myself, I drew them all to have meaning. So I kind of use them as symbolizations for a certain time in my life or a certain like a chunk of my life that I feel like I need to document. Um, and I have symbolism all throughout my own tattoos, and I try to do it for clients too, because I feel like it's going to be on your body forever. To me, I think not that it has to have some sort of symbolism or meaning, but I think it helps a lot to have some kind of meaning behind it.
Yeah, totally. It gives it more power in a way. Like a flower without a meaning. It is pretty, but why does it have so much power that it's on your body, if that makes sense?
Exactly.
Nice. That is that is very cool that you're able to instill these symbols in. I noticed on your Instagram, you tattooed your mentor with an hourglass with two light bulbs in the center.
Yeah.
I was wondering what the meaning behind that was. 'Cause I was looking at it for a while, trying to figure it out, whether it meant like there's light at the end of the tunnel of time, that there's hopes, things like that.
Yeah. That's pretty much exactly what it is. In my personal life, I struggle with mental health sometimes. So I have always seen kind of a light bulb as a light and an idea and kind of this, I don't know how to explain, kind of like of a mystical aura that it has. Like it's a thing that you can turn on and off at any given moment. So to me, the hourglass with the two light bulbs is kind of the, if one light bulb turns off, you can turn on another one.
Right, right. So if you're struggling in one side of life, let's say your job has collapsed, you've still got light on another side with, let's say, a happy relationship.
Exactly.
That's
Right.
beautiful. That's
Thank
really,
you.
and wow, that is amazing. That can really, every time your mentor sees that tattoo, I don't know if he struggles with mental health, but if he does, then every time he sees that tattoo, that could really instill some hope in him and keep him going with
Right.
any tattoo on anyone.
Yeah. And that's like my own tattoos that I put on my body. They're that for me too. If I'm having a rough day, I can look at my Frogbert and think of my dad and think of him singing that song to me when I was a little girl. Or any of my tattoos, they all have meaning for me. So I can, it helps me on any given day.
Right. They're like those quotes that you see on Instagram that are like motivating, inspiring, and helpful, but they're constantly with you wherever you go. You've got this inspiration that you've given yourself.
Right.
That is amazing. That's so beautiful and poetic in a way. Um, yeah. I suppose, do you see tattoos as sort of like accessories, like just like a hat or a scarf?
Yeah, I definitely do. So I, like on my own body, I have black and white tattoos or gray wash. So I don't have any color in mine, and I specifically didn't do color because I am so with my outfits and my fashion, I have to match. So I didn't want to do color because I didn't want to have to match my tattoos.
Oh, right. That's clever. That's very clever. So it's
I
awesome.
mean, some people they don't care, but to me, I know that for me that would drive me nuts. And even like I want one on the back of my neck, kind of like a mandala design, and I would use that kind of as a like a necklace or something. Like it would be part of it would be a decorative thing for me.
Right. Okay. So the way that someone may match a red ruby necklace to a red dress or a red hat, you would match your tattoos. That is so cool, man. That's awesome. Um, we're at over an hour now, so I think I'm gonna end it there.
Okay.
Thank you so much for joining me. This was fun. Okay.
Yeah, it was so fun. I really enjoyed talking to you.
Cool. Bye.